So here's my little $2 dress. Would you like to know how I made it? If you like this video, please press like and subscribe. Thanks, let's get started. Hi, this is Cindy from Vintage to New with another remake tutorial today. I found this really cute little dress at the Goodwill where you buy it by the pound, so it cost me about $1, but you could find it at a garage sale or anywhere else, but it's an adult size 3 dress. I loved the graphic rose here on the front of it. I'm going to remake this down into a dress for a 3-year-old. So let's don't delay, let's get started right away. Just a quick word about trying to match fabrics. When I looked at this little dress, this background is not white and it's kind of an ivory color, and trying to find that would be almost impossible to do the top half of the dress. So you look at what else can you use? Well, black. Black is usually almost always easy to match, especially when it's just an accent like this. So I'm going to do the top of the dress in black. The other tip I have about remaking garments like this, I just brought this home and I threw it in the regular washing machine, washer and dryer, because that's how it's going to be washed from this date forward. So if it didn't turn out, or if it would have fallen apart, yeah, no big loss, right? But it turned out fine. It's a little wrinkly. I'll be ironing it. It also has an attached slip on the inside, which I will be keeping, and I'll show you why later. So I cut out the bodice just using a pattern that I already had, a front and back bodice and a lining, okay? I determined I wanted this little dress to be just slightly above knee length. So you measure from the top of your shoulder, kind of the center back of your neck, down to your waist. That gives you how long your bodice needs to be if you want it to come to the waist. Then you measure from that point down to how long you would like to make it, and that's how big we're going to cut the length of this skirt. So determine where you want it to go, do your measuring, or look at charts. There's charts online that can tell you, how long your bodice needs to be at a certain size to reach your waist, or from your waist down to your knees or your calf, or short, whatever you want. So let's get started. Okay, so I took this skirt back and I pressed it just a little bit so that I'd have a nice flat surface to work on. And after I cut it out, you can see right here is where the zipper in the original dress came down. So I just cut the zipper out, and I'm cutting down here anyway, so that part doesn't even matter. This is the center back seam of the original dress, and I'm going to keep that as the center back seam of this dress. So I marked my 12.75 inches across the top because that's how long I want this skirt to be. And I will have to open this seam up a little bit when I put the zipper in this new dress. So now I'm going to cut that, and I'm going to cut the slip just slightly shorter so that it'll fit back into this skirt. Okay, you can see I've cut the top of the skirt off, and part of the reason I really love remaking already made clothes, where else would you find a fabric print like this off the rack? And so it's already centered, it's already really well done. I love it. So the other thing is I cut the slip so this just slightly shorter than the dress. So that's ready. And the other thing I wanted to mention is I kept this hem because it had a nice little grosgrain ribbon detail on the hem that I really liked. So that just let me know that I wanted to cut it leaving the hem. So the next thing we're going to go do is we're going to sew the bodice, just like you would sew any other bodice. I've decided I wanted to put buttons in the back instead of a zipper, so I'll be doing that. So let's get started and I'll show you how I do that. Okay, so I did this little pattern, had darts at the waist, so I did the darts on the front and the back. I added a piece of really lightweight interfacing at the center back on all sides, the lining and the top, so that when I put the buttonholes in, it's nice and sturdy, and then the other side will have the buttons, so I wanted it sturdy also. And this is a really lightweight cotton fabric, and I'm using it for my fashion fabric and my lining, so that's why I wanted that extra stability right there. So now I'm getting ready to sew the lining and the fashion fabric together. Okay, I've placed right sides together, and now I've already sewn. I started at the bottom here, sewed up around the neck and down the other side of the back. I pinned both of my side seams or shoulder seams open on both sides so they're nice and flat, so when I turn it there's not a lot of bulk. I'm going to clip around the neck, clipping very close to my stitches but not clipping my stitches. Then I'm going to turn it and understitch it, and I'll show you what that looks like. Okay, you can see that I clipped around the neck and I clipped off the square corner as close to my stitching as I can without clipping into it, and now I'm going to turn it right side out. Okay, so here I am, and I'm going to press with my fingers the seam allowance over this way and then stitch it really close to that stitching all around the neck and then down the back of both sides. And you want your stitches to be on the inside, on the wrong side of your garment when it's done. Let me show you. So now you can see what that inside stitching looks like. It's a very nice little finish on the inside of your garment. The outside, there's not going to be a top stitch. Your interfacing won't wiggle its way to the front. It'll just be a nice finish all the way around the back and the neck without any top stitching, which is really nice. Now, the way I did this, I couldn't get right into the corner here, but that's okay. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn this back wrong side out and go around the armholes. Okay, I turned it so it's right sides together again. I've pinned it so that the armhole is right here, pinning my seam open again, and I'm just going to stitch just the inside of the arm on both sides. Okay, I've sewn my seams on both sleeves around the sleeve hole. I clipped out that little center section where it's doubled up right there, because when you turn it, it makes a really big bump, so that's very helpful. So now we get to turn this all right side out, and believe it or not, it goes through the shoulder seam. So start at the bottom and just work the bodice through the shoulder seam like that, and just keep pulling and it will turn right side out. Let me show you. I've got a good start on it now, and so I'm pulling on the bottom and pulling the whole bodice through that shoulder seam. Sometimes you think it's not going to work. This is really lightweight fabric, so it wasn't as hard, but if you have heavyweight fabric, it could be a challenge. So just keep pulling, and pretty soon it all comes through, and then you do the other side. Okay, so here's where we are so far. I've got it turned right side out, and our side seam is still open. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to take and open this up and put right sides together, matching up my underarm right there, and I'm going to sew from side to side the lining and the top, and I'll show you what that looks like. Okay, I added the buttonholes to the back, and note to self, if you're going to put buttonholes in black fabric, probably should have used a black interfacing. So what I'm going to do is just use a permanent marker and get that so it doesn't stand out quite so much. And I'm using white buttons, so it shouldn't be the end of the world. So let's move on. I opened the center back seam probably about 3.5 inches to make it easier to get on and off, and now I'm going to just attach a really small little piece of binding. So let me show you how I do that. Okay, so what I did is I just took the seam and I pulled it straight like this and sewed across with the right sides together. All right, so you can see I just sewed it straight across like that. Now I'm going to turn it and top stitch it. You could use bias binding for this, but I just cut about an inch strip of the same fabric that I used for the bodice, sewed it on straight across like I just said, you know, pulling the seam out so that it goes flat like that. Now I'm going to take it and just turn it under to about where we sewed it and then flip it in. And we should have a very nice seam right here on the outside. Then I'm just going to top stitch it down. So I'm going to do that and show you what it looks like. Okay, so I have it sewn and turned. So now I'm going to take one side of it and push it to the back and then lay it over the top of the other side and getting it as flat as I can back here so that that looks pretty good in the center back seam. So the side that I turned under, I'm going to pin. It's going to stay turned under, and then that'll be the other side over here. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to attach the bodice, and I'm going to line up the bodice with the top of the dress, matching the center, the side seams, and the back, and then I'll show you what we'll do next. Okay, I wanted to show you that the side that I folded back that's going to go over the other side here in the center back is the side with the buttonhole. So when they pull over to button over here, it's going to help keep this little slit closed here in the back. Okay, I have matched the center front of the bodice to the center front of the skirt. The side seams I've matched and the backs I have matched. I'm going to pleat this skirt instead of gathering it. It's got a lot to be gathered, but I thought it would be cute pleated. So what I'm going to do is, this is the center front, and this is the side seam. I'm going to pull it out like this, going to match up my fabrics, all right? So the exact center between those two is where I'm going to put my first little pleat. I'm just cutting these little notches to help me get them lined up. So my notch that I just cut is right there and right there. So that's splitting the difference between the center front and the side exactly. And I'm going to put a pin in it right there. All right, and then I'm going to do it again, splitting that difference exactly right there. And these notches are really small. They will be well within your seam allowance. Don't go crazy making the notches really big, but it'll help you line it up. So just keep doing this all the way around, and then I'll show you what to do. Once you get your pleats down to the size that you want, the way I do it is I use my fingers and I pinch it in so that the pleat goes to the center like that, so it's in the middle here, pinched in, and then make sure that it's nice and straight, and then I always push it towards the center front. So here it is pushed together and pushed over to the center front, and then I'll pin it in place. So just do that all the way around. Okay, so here's my center front. All of them are facing this way on this side and this way on that side. I went around and counted and made sure that I had the same number from side seam to the center and from the side seams to the back, all the way around. I also made sure when I pinned them that they were nice and straight and sharp. So now I'm going to sew it on. Okay, I wanted to show you how I'm doing what I'm going to call a petticoat for this little dress. Now it came with a slip and I'm going to use that, but it's just a straight like tricot fabric. It's real soft and real stretchy. So that's going to be on the inside next to the child's legs. Then I did a single layer of this tulle, and it's really soft tulle. If you get the really scratchy tulle, it can be kind of miserable to wear. So this is the really soft tulle, and it's probably about double the size of the waist. Then I cut a ruffle for the bottom, and I sewed it with the gathers on the outside. So the child's leg is going to be in here, okay? I sewed all the ruffles to the outside like this, all the way around. Then I just cut a piece of really lightweight white fabric that I had, and I sewed it on. So here's the ruffle, here's that raw edge here. I sewed it on along here, and now I'm turning it, encasing all of those raw edges of that ruffle inside of this piece of fabric. And the reason I'm doing this is because those ruffles and gathers, when they're put together like that, let's just say they sit down and that's what digs into their leg, it gets itchy and they don't want to wear their dress and it's just miserable. So be sure and cover them up inside your petticoat and then have the slip on the inside next to them, and that should help a lot. So I'm going to finish this and move on to the rest. Okay, so I've attached the tulle slip to the bodice all the way around, doing little pleats and gathers to pull it all up. I left an opening in the back that I will hand tack down when I'm done. And so let's sew this on and then add the other slip. Okay, I've got the slip pinned on with the back opening all lined up, and now I'm going to serge this going around. Okay, so I serged around the inside here. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to press this seam upwards this way, and then I'm going to top stitch it right along here with my black thread, so that that seam will always lay flat all around. So that'll be the last machine thing I do. I'll hand sew this in the back so that it looks good at the opening here. All right, and then I will sew my buttons on, and then I'll show you the final project.